Perfect. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, Again, hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I am Buck. I'm a senior community manager here at Rovio. I'm joined today by our gracious host Clover and our wonderful guest Ben. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself first, and then we'll go over to Clover?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Mattis. I've been at Rovio now for 2.5 years. I joined right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, which was a very interesting time to to join a company. I guess it was a very interesting time for everything. I wear a lot of different hats at Rovio. So I am the senior vice president of Angry Birds brand strategy. And that's basically what I'm here to talk to you guys about today is how we think about the brand internally, how we're trying to move it forward, how we're trying to, I guess, pay homage to our history, all of that good stuff. Um, I also wear a funny little hat, which is called Future of Gaming. Sometimes we've referred to it as Future of Entertainment, which basically means sort of what's next for Rovio. Obviously, free to play mobile, we're pretty comfortable there. Do we care about metaverse? Do we care about cloud streaming? Do we care about cross platform? Do we care about instant games? Do we care about AR, VR, etc.? So I spend a lot of time thinking about those sorts of things. I also opened the Rovio Montreal studio. Opening a studio in the middle of the pandemic was one of the more interesting challenges I've had in my life, but we're definitely getting our legs beneath us these days and starting to really ramp up and work on some pretty exciting stuff. So those are all the hats that I wear at Rovio, and I'm really happy and excited to be here chatting with you guys today.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. And yeah, I think that's something that's important to point out is you've had this interesting, arc so far here at Rovio where you've been able to kind of do so many different things and have your hands in various places. So I think that's super interesting, and I think everyone here is gonna be very interested in what you have to say today. So
Yeah,
thanks for being here.
of course, of course.
Some important pieces in the Rovio pie.
Exactly.
And it's a big pie. It's a big pie, and there's a lot of slices.
It's a big Finnish pie.
It's a big Finnish pie. It's an international pie now.
That is
that's the
true.
thing.
That is true.
So Clover, who are you, and why are you up here?
Oh man, that's a great question. I ask myself that every day when I look in the mirror. Hey everybody, it is your boy Clover. You probably don't know me, but I'm always your boy, always an open ear. I talk about various things on the internet, specifically YouTube channel stuff. I try to do video essays and now lore videos for some reason, and now interviews / Q&As. And I'm trying to get off the ground. I am a media arts / screen acting major at a university in Kansas, so I'm already a fish out of water in real life, too. I'm a Texas boy, first and foremost. But essentially, I've always had an interest since I was very young in storytelling and how that was used. But now it always became, but then over the course of time became an all-encompassing thing in media and how it's used. And how it's made, and all the intricacies of it. So this, of course, fascinates me, and Angry Birds is actually always fascinating. I will always stand by Angry Birds as probably one of the most fascinating games in gaming history and culture. Not just because of how I grew up with it, but generally, I just think there's so many genuine depth and intricacies to it that people don't give it credit for in the larger gaming industry. So it is an honor to be here and an honor to be representing the fans tonight. And, of course, talking to, Mr. Ben here.
Ooh, Mr. Ben. That makes me sound so fancy.
Yes, of course.
It does indeed.
One thing to know about me, I am not fancy.
Fair enough. I
I'm
mean,
the
yeah,
I'm
sure.
the opposite.
I was imagining your hat either being a ball cap or a fancy top hat.
Yeah, with a monocle.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
exactly, yeah.
And
I guess
a little banner next to you that says "Mr. Important Guy."
Mr. Important, yeah. Chief Importance Officer.
There we go. There we go. Okay.
all right. Well, thanks for those wonderful introductions. I think it's time to jump into the questions. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, I'll kick it off with the first question here. So this is a question about kind of Angry Birds and Rovio strategy. Someone asked, how do you feel about the way that Angry Birds will continue to evolve over the coming years in terms of Rovio's strategy? Do you feel like console games might make a return?
Yeah, I mean, well, this was a great one because it has the word strategy in it. And just to be clear, strategy is not strategy is not gospel, right? There is no single person at Rovio who says, yes, you can do this with the Angry Birds brand, and no, you can't do this. That's not the way the brand has evolved. That's not the way we work. Frankly, I don't think that's the way great content is created. My job, again, amongst other things, when talking about the strategy, is to sort of say, here's where we should go. Here's where we could go. Here's the things we should be thinking about. And then it is a collective process working with everyone in the organization who touches the Angry Birds brand in one way, shape, or form in order to try and reach those goals. And something that we are very fond of saying and recognizing at Rovio is that it's quite unlike almost any other entertainment brand out there. I mean, there's a term in entertainment, you'll often hear people talk about something that's 4-quadrant. 4-quadrant means male, female, young, old, right? If you have a 4-quadrant brand, you hypothetically can appeal to, the entire sort of, I guess, landscape of consumers. We talk about Angry Birds being cradle to grave. It's an entertainment brand that can and does appeal to children, to Gen Z, to teenagers, to young adults, to parents, and frankly, to grandparents. Angry Birds is one of 2 video games my father has ever played in his life. So, and he's 80. We definitely have a brand that has the potential to have appeal across a very, very, very wide range of player audiences. That means we have to constantly think about new experiences for all audiences. What can we do to appeal to children? What can we do to make the brand really appealing to teenagers? What can we do to appeal to the nostalgic set who've been playing and engaging with our brand and our community for 12 years? And we have to be very careful, right? Because we do have a history and we do have a legacy and we do have a very strong sort of nostalgic and emotional connection for a lot of people. And we have to take that seriously. If we just say, yeah, forget the past, we're all about the future, then we're dismissive of everything that made us great and got us where we are today. Now, of course, if we just say, forget about the future, let's only focus on the past, then we stagnate and we don't move forward. So, I mentioned earlier, I have multiple titles, and one of those titles is head of future of gaming. So, I'm definitely the man of tomorrow, right? I always look at new trends, new players, new audiences, new platforms, new concepts. And I'm always trying to think of ways we can expand the brand. That part of the job is incredibly exciting to me. I love working with a brand that has, the potential to be so expansive and can fit in so many different on so many different platforms, targeting so many different audiences. I'm also, Clover, you were sort of saying earlier, that you find sort of the process of storytelling, so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I do too. My whole life, I'm not trained the way you're training in it, but my whole life I've loved telling stories. Most people, can't get me to shut up. I love a good
Relatable.
story. And I love great characters, and intrigue and mystery. I'm a big fan of that. And if you look back at my career, I've worked with brands that usually have very strong focus on character and story. Brands like Prince of Persia, Batman Arkham, Assassin's Creed. These are mega entertainment brands that lean in very heavily to character and story. So, it's definitely something that I love about the brand, is that it can be, quite instantaneously gratifying, accessible, and kind of pick up and play, and yet there's the potential for much richer depth there as well, and much deeper storytelling. Um, and then finally, do I feel like console games might make a return? They absolutely might. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that we're trying as hard as we can to make sure that happens. I saw some familiar names jump into the chat earlier. I saw UTF jump in, and a couple of others who, I've actually had the opportunity to play with in the past on one game in particular that were, in the sort of early-ish phases of developing. And it's something we're pushing really hard on. I mean, obviously, no guarantees, no promises, because making games is a complex process. But we are definitely trying to do some pretty exciting things there.
Well,
Yeah. Just let me pop in. One of the things that has already started kind of making its rounds on Twitter was we had our financial reports go out today, and there was some mentions of some of this future stuff in there. So I just want to say I'm really excited about it. I know you are as well, Ben, and I think everyone in here is excited for the future as well.
Yeah, and I mean, future-facing games take a long time to build and make great, and future-facing games take, generally speaking, even longer. Even longer to build and make great. But we're not going to have to wait forever, because Rovio builds. Excuse me, sorry, I'm coughing. Rovio believes very deeply in building games that the players want. I'm not interested in making, an ego project here, and nobody working on any of our games is interested in making an ego project. We want to make the games that the players want to play, and the only way to do that is to get the games in the hands of the players as soon as you possibly can. And so, it will happen that chances are many of you in this chat will have opportunities to play these games early in the development process. This is not going to be you having to sit around for years and years and years waiting for us to actually do something.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I actually play tested for a game not last summer, but the summer before that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you may have been involved with that, but I'm not going to expand on that because that's obviously still pretty secret. But
those were good days.
Those were good days. I will tell you that. I'm just saying, audience, keep an eye out on everything Rovio does, especially this guy. Yeah. But man, really, this is fascinating. They're gonna keep. Once I go back in the footage here, and I'm just editing it down or editing like off the fat, for it to still be roughly. I mean, like the beginning fat and ending fat.
Yeah, you can just cut out everything that I say.
Oh, that's not what I mean at all. I mean like the beginning of the
no,
video.
that's what you should do.
I mean like just the basic parts of the audio where we're just like, is it working? No, that's what I'm talking about cutting out.
Those are the best parts. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut out my stuff and keep just us stumbling over the mics. That will make for great viewing.
That would be entertaining, huh? Anyway, I just wanted to say that, yes, this is very fascinating. I'm going to be taking some notes after the fact.
Cool.
But my question, this is actually a question I wrote down.
Shoot.
Thank you, Buck, for writing it down, by the way. Angry Birds as a brand has been on social media platforms for a long time. I mean, as long as Angry Birds as a brand has existed, they've been on social medias like your Twitters and your Book Faces and even now your Tickety Talks.
The Tickety Talks.
But there has been a noticeable shift in the past year towards more influencer style content creation, especially with Red basically being a VTuber now. Why is that?
Yes, indeed. Dude, I'm not cool. Red is way more interesting than I am. I mean, and maybe even more interesting than Buck. Although I don't know. I mean, Buck, maybe that's going too far.
That's
Uh,
debatable.
that's debatable. Okay, so like neck and neck, let's just say. Um, but like I actually find the character of Red, hugely fascinating
Oh, I
personally,
agree.
right? This is a guy, this is a character who he exists because he has faced incredibly tough obstacles. He has felt rage, right? And rage is something that is so often put down, right? It is so often like we're supposed to repress it, we're supposed to push it down, we're supposed to focus on positivity. And here is someone who has effectively said, F that. I'm going to channel this rage and I'm going to turn it into positive action. And then he's actually done stuff with that, right? Like he's actually made things better. To me, that's always been my absolute favorite message about the brand. It's been the most powerful thing for me because I feel like I live that almost every day. And I think many of us do, right? We have these feelings. We feel there are problems in the world. There are things that, we feel almost hopeless to solve. It gets us down. And then sometimes that gets us angry. And if we can find ways to channel that anger into actually doing something about it, that to me is an incredibly positive message. I would love to hear more about that, right? And hearing that straight from the source is so much more fascinating than having a corporate Rovio account talk about how this is something we're trying to do. I want to hear it in the words of Red, the character who's actually feeling these feelings and driving this change. And like I'm being a little bit possibly presumptuous here, and so apologies if I'm projecting too hard, but my read on it is that the community enjoys it too. I mean, the feeling that I have is that the community right now is as buzzy and engaged as almost it's ever been. Certainly since I joined Rovio. And I feel like giving Red a voice and sort of taking the chains off a little bit and letting him loose, interacting directly into the community, has been a really strong catalyst for that. And again, apologies if it's presumptuous, but that's my read.
Well, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with like everything you said there. Straight up, I have friends who would tell you that I cannot shut up about the Angry Birds movie and Red's characterization in that, and how I actually find it, and also even in Red's characterization outside of that, I think that he is a fascinating use of both iconic cartoon characteristics and also more complexity, and a good message about emotion. And also, it does mean a lot that you said that from the source. Not only because obviously this means a lot to me, but as someone who's grown up on the autism spectrum, I can relate to this. I always related to Red to some extent of having more primal emotion, like just
Yes.
that that people just want you to get rid of, push down, don't just pretend it doesn't exist. And the fact that Red is the hero of the story because he uses his emotion, and not because he doesn't get angry, but that's something I always liked about the first film, is that the message at the end isn't you need to learn to control your anger, you need to just pretend it doesn't exist to be happy like everyone else and be positive. That's the message. No. The message is you can control your anger while also making good out of it. You don't need to pretend your emotions don't exist.
100%.
That's not a way to live.
I find that fascinating too.
And also yes, I will say yes. I guess you could say it's presumptuous, but I have personally, and I think many people have enjoyed talking to Red, and seeing him discuss things. I think that was a brilliant move, not just in terms of marketing, but to boost the community. I think that I can speak for a lot of fans and say that it is very enjoyable.
Well, that's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Yep.
He just needs to be a little bit nicer to me. He seems to roast me from time to time. Not a fan.
Well,
No, roastable.
Well, I mean, I recently did not make happy with Red when he was talking about Halloween costumes. So I think I might be on his bad side too now, Buck.
We'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's jump on to the next question.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I think this is a question that everyone here is definitely interested in as well. So, what are your thoughts on making a show with a complex story that caters to all ages and not just kids, like Summer Madness?
Yeah. First off, I love Summer Madness. Last time I looked in the mirror, I was no longer a kid. I don't remember the last time anyone mistook me for someone under 18. It feels like a lifetime ago. But you know, in all seriousness, I think so. We're gonna use the word angryverse a lot in this call. I love that term. I actually think someone in the community coined it. I feel like the first time I read it on Twitter, and I just said, yes, that. Let's start calling it that. So whoever that was, if you're listening, you're awesome, and thank you for inventing that term. You're going to hear me talk about the term angryverse a lot, and I feel like the angryverse is filled with rich stories waiting to be told. Backstories, like further backstories about Blues and Terrence or Matilda. How did they, whatever, come to be? Where did they first meet Red? What makes them angry? Why do they fight? Right? Why are they a part of the crew? What is their particular vendetta? I find those kinds of questions fascinating, and I'm excited to find creative, Rovio ways to explore those stories in the coming years. I think a subtext to what you're asking is perhaps, are we going to make a serial? So a show with continuity, with character development, episode over episode, with lore, with world building, maybe with a little bit of mystery. That sounds amazing. Sign me up, again, first in line. And all I can say is stay tuned. There's a lot going on at Rovio right now. And you guys see a lot of it, obviously, because you're super eagle-eyed and we can't post a test concept without you picking it up and tearing it apart. And I love that. I absolutely love that part about the community. But there are things under development where there have been no hints of leaks so far, at least from what I can tell. No tests have made it out yet. And there's some really, really exciting stuff that's going on. So, keep your eyes peeled.
Okay.
That does sound super interesting. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah. I love all the Angry Birds shows to some extent. Of course, I love some more than others, but I love Summer Madness too. But yeah, I will say, as a fan of a lot of serialized animation and television that has an overarching story, I can't help but my dream inside my head is like, oh my god, will this be flocking real? Oh man. Thank the big egg in the sky. Mighty Eagle has seen our prayers. Would you like to move on to the next question, or would you like to expand on that?
Happy to move on. Yeah, we've got a lot here. So
yeah, that's true.
I talk a lot, as you guys know. I talk a lot, so everything takes a long time. So
Believe
apologies
me.
if I'm dragging us down.
You are not dragging us down, dude. I can't help but look at you and see a older Rovio version of myself.
Well, that's great.
So, okay. I might have more charisma, but still. I'm just joking. Okay. This is a question that sort of expands on the first question I asked, but might as well ask it.
Sure.
Speaking of which, Red, or Mr. Angry Bird, man, remember when we called him that? Has even more recently become not only the face of Twitter and TikTok, but the voice of it too. So, why the approaching the meta roleplay area for audience interaction? Will this is especially the thing to hinge on here because it's already been kind of
Yeah.
discussed. Will more marketing or even the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
games get a taste of this sort of thing going forward outside of it?
Yeah. So you're right. This does sort of tie into the previous question. I'll try and expand on it, so I'm not just sort of saying the same thing. I believe Red is one of the most recognizable mascots of mobile gaming, which puts him, as one of the most recognizable mascots in all of gaming. It is, as far as I'm concerned, he's in the same pantheon. He's in the same book as the Marios and the Sonics and the Donkey Kongs and the Pac-Mans and the, Master Chiefs, of the world, the Pikachus and whatnot.
Chris Pratt and Ryan
you know,
Reynolds.
These are characters who you just show a picture of them to most of the world's population, and that they might not have played the game, but they'll say, yeah, I know who that is. I've seen that character before. And again, to me, that's incredibly powerful. That's a huge opportunity with Red. And as we were talking about, earlier, Clover, this is a character with things to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these platforms, the Discords and the Twitters and the TikToks and the YouTubes and the Twitches, maybe, of the world, are excellent platforms to pontificate, right? To express yourself if you have an audience and if you deserve that audience. That to me is incredibly exciting. Like, I get buzzy about the idea of helping Red deserve the audience that he has on these platforms, to say things that are worth saying, that are exciting, that are cool, that are maybe trendy, sure, but are also interesting and meaningful and, dare I say it, possibly, useful and valuable. Like, that to me is an incredibly exciting opportunity. And in terms of whether or not that'll leak into games, obviously it's going to depend on the game in question. Some projects that we currently have in development are perhaps a little bit more suited for that kind of really strong character focus that we're talking about here. And others might, lean a little bit more strongly into the sort of overall flock or, whatever, be more gameplay focused. And so character prioritization is lower.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that to me is an absolute strength of the brand. That is, it is rare. I mean, take Halo and take Master Chief out of it, and what do you have? Take Halo and take Master Chief out of it and make him, a secondary character, and what do you have? You don't really have Halo.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that we can make games like Bad Piggies, right, where, Red almost doesn't feature into it at all, and still very much say, this is an Angry Birds project as part of the sort of overall brand of Angry Birds. And then yet have Red stand up on the soapbox with a microphone and say, hey, come check out Bad Piggies. It's great. It's great for UGC. It's great for creativity. It's great for sharing your ideas, and have that really fit. That to me is super, super powerful. So it's a roundabout way of sort of saying, yes, we will probably see more of this in the days to come.
That is, wow, that's a phenomenal follow-up answer. That's really great. Genuinely, I'm excited to see where that plan of yours goes, and plan of Rovio. I mean, I do hope, I just want to say, if I can influence anything, character focus is obviously what I love about this franchise, so if that appears in more games, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
We're on it.
Cool.
So, okay, we've spent about 20 minutes answering a couple questions so far. This one, maybe you don't have to spend so much time because it does somewhat relate to a previous question, but is there a chance of an overarching 20 to 30-minute series, especially one canon to the movies?
Yeah, again, sort of touching upon some of the stuff we've said before. I mean, never say never. Shows are a ton of fun to help develop. Not like Rovio, like we're game makers first and foremost, which, I mean, obviously, making shows and making movies and all of this sort of stuff is something we love to do. but any sort of extended story like that, it's always going to be done with partners. So partners who are as excited as we are about growing this wonderful universe, right? And that's complicated. I mean, whatever. I'm not going to turn this into a business 101 lecture, but I mean, there's a lot of operational challenges that we work through every day, and they just take time. So yes, we are working on big, exciting projects that flesh out the canon even further, that have very strong character focus, that absolutely lean into the idea of Angry Birds as a platform for storytelling as well as games. And when the time is right, you guys will be the first to know more details about it.
And I think at least one person here wants a show completely dedicated to Zeta. So let's make that happen.
There we go. A talk show, maybe. That would be fun.
That would be fun. Maybe if we can get like Red to join the talk show.
Yes.
Honestly,
yes.
I could see Red hosting
Red
a talk
and Zeta
show.
Hour.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know, if I could come up with a good pun. I mean, Flock Talk already works a lot. Red's Flock Talk. I'm just saying, coming to a streaming service near you. It'll just be a bunch of episodes where he interviews various characters, including like a pig or two, but the pig ones end abruptly short. I can think you could imagine why. Okay, so next question. This is something that we've elaborated on at the very start, but as far as this is something we can focus on a bit more. Okay, first off, nostalgia is a very, very powerful thing. Thing is, early 2000s kids like me grew up and are now reaching adulthood. We are getting nostalgic for the games we played as children. Something that boosted games like Minecraft back into public perception back in 2019. Or got Rovio to remake classic from the ground up. Great job on that, by the way.
Thank you.
No problem. I think that was an awesome move. Do you think that will be a factor in how Rovio utilizes and markets the franchise? Or will Rovio rather not count on the teen audience more than they are now? Though I will say, I do agree with what you said before of understanding your legacy and nostalgia and how powerful that is, while also looking forward to the future. So I hope we can expand on that and other things.
Yeah, I mean, this one is perhaps the meatiest question of all of them, and it's one that I probably spend the most time talking and thinking about internally. So apologies in advance if this is a long-winded answer.
No problem. It's a long-winded answer to my long-winded question.
So let me start with nostalgia. Nostalgia is incredibly powerful. No one's going to deny that, right? It pulls at the heartstrings, doesn't it? We all, I think, miss youth, even if we're still young. No matter what age you are, chances are, yesterday was simpler than today. And so nostalgia reminds us of times when we were younger, when maybe life was a little bit easier, when maybe life was a little bit simpler. And of course, nostalgia is famous for, focusing on something. The negative of your life is sort of, shall we say, blurred out a little bit, and the positive comes into focus. That's one of the wonderful things about nostalgia, right? Because of course, being a kid isn't always great either, right? But when we think back on it fondly, the nostalgia element highlights what was good about it and usually dulls or negates some of the challenges. And it's used everywhere. Nostalgia is used everywhere. And of course, we at Rovio are hugely aware of the nostalgic power and potential and, frankly, responsibility of Angry Birds, and recognizing the place that Red and his friends, had in many of your childhoods and many of our lives, is super important, right? I wasn't young when Angry Birds came out, but it was certainly the first, game I played on a touchscreen and a touchscreen phone, and I think probably the same as almost everyone in this channel. Now, at the same time, and I've made this point before, but I'll reiterate it, right? You cannot be beholden to nostalgia. because it can trap you and it can lock you up, right? Because then you only relaunch the same things. You don't tell new stories. You don't create new experiences. You don't grow your audience. You don't grow your platform. You just keep what you had. And that's not great for anyone. That's not great for growth, like, making more money or like whatever. That's sort of like cynical corporate, like, let's get bigger kind of thing. It's not great for that. And frankly, it's not great for the community either, because just bringing more passionate people to the table, whether it be TikTok or Discord or, what have you, that's going to improve the health of the community as long as they're coming in with, whatever good intentions. So growth, in my opinion, is good for all of us. So the balance is critical, and we talk about this all the time. How do we do both? How do we keep nostalgia? How do we keep those fires burning? How do we stay true to our past and our history, but also make bold, ambitious, crazy new things? And to me, that's, again, I was saying earlier why, the angryverse was such a eureka moment for me. That just the word, it just struck me. I was like, yes, that's what we do, right? We are always asking ourselves, we just didn't have a word for it, but we're always asking ourselves, well, what if there was a world where Red was a teenage MMA brawler? Like, what would that universe look like? What would the universe look like if Red had arms and legs and could speak English? What would the universe look like if Red was a teenager? And like, we are always asking ourselves those questions, and therein is born all of the great stories that we've told and the gameplay experiences that we've crafted, over the years. Now we just have a title for it, right? It won't always be the classic Red, but you can trust that, like Rovio has very, very deep affinity and care for the legacy of these characters, and we won't ever phone it in, right? We're never gonna just say, yeah, whatever, slap a Red on it and chuck it out the door. Like, that's not how we work.
Mhm.
So that's sort of my overall arching about nostalgia versus whatever innovation or something like that. Now on to the teen side of things. I mean, I could speak for hours just on this topic. So I'm 44 years old. I have 3 kids. One is 14, one is 12, one is 7 and change. And in particular, the 14 and the 12-year-old remind me every day. Well, first of all, they remind me how uncool I really am. That's like their absolute most favorite activity in the world. But the other thing is they remind me every day just how fast the world is changing. I mean, I make a living by being plugged in. I'm always on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Discord. I'm reading articles all the time. I'm trying all the new technologies. I'm on Mid-Journey, I'm playing with DALL-E, I'm doing AR, I'm doing VR. Like, I'm always trying to stay abreast of the things that could shape and change entertainment culture. And the reality is, I cannot keep up with the speed of cool that is a 14-year-old on TikTok. Like, the rate of change is so fast. I can't possibly stay abreast of it. Truth is, teenagers always have been and always will be tastemakers. Kids aspire to be teenagers. Grown-ups look back nostalgically at teenagers. Being a teenager has always been an incredibly powerful opportunity to help shape the trends that define, modern popular culture. And teenagers are important for another reason, right? Like, many of you probably discovered Angry Birds as teenagers, right? There's something very powerful about fandom created in teenage years, and this is not like specific to Angry Birds. Like, this is true across everything: sports teams, music, media, books, etc. I still replay the games, reread the books, rewatch the movies, re-listen to the music, etc. that I fell in love with as a teenager, right? So appealing to teens is always going to matter to us. They are the the middle of our cradle to grave strategy. They are cultural tastemakers. They are our own history and legacy from a brand point of view. Definitely something we take very, very seriously.
Wow.
What a great answer for,
That is a
for
great
such
answer.
a great question. Let's quickly jump to the next one because
Thank you for calling my
well,
question great, by the way.
It was. I know Ben is probably drinking some water here, so we'll give him a second to breathe after that answer. But the next question is also, like, I think super important to the Angry Birds communities because as we see here in this Discord over on Twitter and the various other places, the art and lore is super important to the community, and we of course love seeing the various creations our fan artists and lore creators and lore masters make. So someone asked, how viable would a new piece of media, be it a game, animated series, etc., that focuses more on the lore aspect of Angry Birds, specifically maybe the tunes lore as seen in the World of Angry Birds official guide? So how viable do you think a piece of media surrounding that would be?
I love that. I love that that official guide. I have a copy of it in my home office. So viable, like I focused on the word viable here when I was sort of thinking about how I wanted to answer this question. Like, viable is an interesting word, like, because there's financial viability, there's fandom viability, there's plausibility, which is kind of like connected to viability. It's an interesting word. So, like, we definitely, as I've talked about before, like, we definitely have projects in the works that put a lot of emphasis on characters, right? And lore and story. And, like, whether or not those projects are viable, i.e., will they make it out of conception? Will they, like, make it out of pre-production and actually turn into live products that all of you can watch or play or otherwise consume? It depends on a lot of factors, right? And a huge part of that is on us. Like, we have to make good stuff. Like, it has to be good. In fact, it has to be great. It has to be fun. It has to be emotional. It has to be engaging. It has to have a great like, that's on us, right? Now, assuming we succeed there and we do that, then it's a little bit on, like, the world, like players, like, you guys have to like it and consume it and, like, celebrate it and engage with it, and, like, and that drives viability, right? So if we make great stuff and you guys like it, well, then that opens up the doors to something staying and then growing. And if we make not great stuff and you guys don't like it, well, then, shame on us. So, maybe let's touch upon this again next year when some of, these projects that we're working on have advanced a little bit more, and then, the community can come back and comment on whether or not it feels like they have a platform to dive deeper into some of that sort of lore, and again, kind of like character narrative, maybe, that seems to be such a powerful source of the kinds of lore crafting and fan art and fan fiction and just UGC in general that is, again, frankly, at the heart of any powerful community. Something we care extremely deeply about at Rovio.
Absolutely. So the next question, I think, Clover, you got something for him.
Okay. How do you see the Angry Birds movies universe in classic? This is not my question. Let me just try and. Okay, I'm gonna say and read it verbatim. How do you see the Angry Birds movie universe and classic/tunes universe being merged sometimes? They're basically supposed to be their own things, according to the fans in older media, with stuff like Angry Birds Reloaded, and which is associated as Classic Dimension on the website, alongside Angry Birds 2 and other stuff like Angry Birds Minecraft, with Angryverse being an established thing now, with this whole merging ideology still being an occasional thing, or that eventually be phased out?
Yeah. Oh,
Bit of a mouthful.
Just the other day, I was sitting down with Red to discuss this. Something we've talked about quite a lot. Trying to wrap my head around it myself, I gotta say. And I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure that even he gets it. But for the best I've been able to figure out, this is sort of how it works. So, I'm going to assume that everyone here is more or less abreast of the concept of the quote-unquote multiverse, right? There are infinite universes inside a multiverse. I think that's pretty well established in modern pop culture. Some big brains, think that maybe even that's the way our real world universe works, but that's obviously beyond the scope of this discussion. So if there are infinite universes, then there are infinite versions of everyone, right? There's a universe where I actually did successfully become a marine biologist, which was a childhood ambition, and another universe where I did successfully become an airline pilot, and now I'm just frankly petrified of airplanes. So I don't know about that universe, but whatever. If you watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is just such an incredible, amazing movie, then I guess there's a universe where I'm a rock. Or if you watch Loki, then I guess I'm an alligator somewhere. So if there are many, infinite universes, then there are many or infinite variants of Red and Chuck and Bomb and Stella and Terrence and Blues and Matilda and even the Matt Damon bird, right? Like there are infinite versions of these characters. Mm-hmm. And again, someone gave that a name. They called it the Angryverse, and we thought it was awesome. And we sort of said, yes, that's what we've been doing. We now have a name for it. Now, as best as I can figure, Red is the only one who can jump between those branches. And I don't even believe that he can do it intentionally, right? It is, as best as I can figure out, it happens. It sometimes happens as a shock. So there's some story just behind how Red is triggering the ability to, cross the streams, as it were, to jump between these different branches. And clearly, he's messed with the streams before, right? Mm-hmm. Clearly, he has taken characters from branch A and hopped to branch B and injected them into there before. Seems risky to me, right? Isn't there something about not crossing the streams? I feel like I've heard that before. Mm. So,
it's a reference that's probably too old for some of the people here, but I know what I'm talking about, Ben.
All right. Well, us old people can, I don't know, go back and rewatch Ghostbusters and remember what it was to be young back in the 80s. So, if you sit down and you ask Red, right, like, okay, Red, who's the angriest? You've got classic Red, Summer Madness Red, Movie Red, Dream Red, who's going to get the most angry? I've asked him that before, and he got flustered, slammed the table, and walked off and grumbled something about, why don't you make a game about it and see what happens? So, you can ask him on Twitter and see what he says. But it doesn't seem to be something that he is quite ready to talk about all that much. So as best as I can figure, that's how it works. There are distinct universes. There have definitely been some streams crossing. And there is one who sometimes hops between them for reasons that, quite frankly, I'm still trying to figure out.
That's very interesting. Just want to say, interesting that you go. I'm imagining you and Red at a coffee table or something, but maybe that's not how you guys hang. But
sometimes
interesting.
Sometimes
I've seen it.
What kind of coffee does Red like, by the way? Just curious.
He drinks with regular milk.
Of course he does.
Which is very weird, right?
I was
very
imagining
weird.
He'd be a black coffee kind of guy. Just sulk in his misery. So next question. Did all the Angry Birds sagas happen in what we call the... This is a... interesting. Did all the Angry Birds sagas happen in what we call the same universe? By that, I mean, for example, Angry Birds Toons and Angry Birds Movie. They are both different, for example. In Angry Birds Toons, we got the King Smooth Cheeks, and in the movie, we got Leonard as the king.
So, I guess, yeah, this is almost like sort of an extension in some ways of like that previous one a little bit, but I'll expand on it a little bit more. Okay, so there was a movie once. You guys, again, this is an old movie. There's the butterfly effect. It was called, right? And the premise was, a butterfly flaps its wings in frickin' New York, and it creates I don't know, tsunami in Japan or something like that. The gist of it is that like every event that happens everywhere is somehow interconnected and leads to every other event. So that if one thing changes, then everything else is going to change through the hour, through the day, through, history. And just think about your own day, right? Like everything had to happen just so for you to be sitting here listening to this stream right now. If you missed the bus, if you slept in, if you got grounded, if you got hit by a car, if anything went slightly differently, you wouldn't be here listening to this today. So obviously, in this narrative of infinite universes, of course there's going to be variance. There's going to be reasons why our characters look different, sound different, act different, maybe have different names, maybe even have sort of slightly different backstories. Of course, that's how it's going to play out. What makes sense to me conceptually when I try and wrap my head around this, and I've seen many of you sort of chiming in with like similar thoughts, in the lore crafting channel on Discord and that sort of stuff, is that there are things that make red, right? And those are things you'd expect to see somehow, somewhere in like whatever angryversal form he has, right? For Chuck, is it his speed? Is it his color? Is it his friendship to red? Is it his loyalty? Is it his can-do attitude? Like, is it his, there's all of these different elements. Which ones make Chuck versus which ones are more likely to be variable across these different angryversal, branches? That, as a creator, is incredibly fun to explore. And frankly, as a creator who cares a lot about the community and spends a lot of time certainly lurking in the community, it's incredibly fun to see your thoughts on that as well, right? Because in some ways what you guys think makes Chuck is super important to us as the creators who then, working with Red, create the particular expressions of Chuckdom across all of these different experiences. And so it's something we spend a lot of time thinking about and frankly listening.
Wow, that's a great answer. I just wanted to expand on this real quick. This is not going to take long, but I just wanted to say, in case this person is wondering about the king pig specifically, I'm sure that you know this, Ben, and Buck probably knows this as well, but the king pigs are in the movie and game/tunes canon are different characters too. It's a father-son dichotomy. So you can consider this to play into the Angryverse as well. Like in one of the universes, Leonard's still the king, and in one of the universes, his son the king.
Absolutely.
So just want to say that that probably plays the parts into it too. The interconnected relationships of the Angryverse.
Yeah. Well, thank you for.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying there.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify for some audience members because I know that a lot of people don't actually know that. Anyway, next question. In the Angry Birds Network's recent interview with the Rovio CEO, it was revealed that there are plans for a third movie. We've seen that the second Angry Birds movie garnered less attention than the first one. What has Rovio learned since then about making movies, and what themes could/will the third movie focus on?
Yes. This is an interesting one. So first off, let's underline, bold, put arrows next to, make it italicized, increase the font. Plans is the operative word here. Until something is formally announced, nothing is official, right? Making a movie is complicated, as I'm sure you can imagine. It's at least as complicated as making a video game. Of course, I have a bias. There's a lot of things to get right for it to happen. That said, let me make this crystal clear. If a movie does happen, I am first in line, right? I'd love to spend more time in that world. exploring those versions of the characters, that particular branch of the angryverse. There's a ton of stories there to tell. In terms of lessons learned about, like, whatever, like, how do we make a hypothetical third movie make a bigger splash than the second movie? I'm not a movie executive. I'm not the expert. I've never made a Hollywood blockbuster before. I don't know that I have the answer. I'll happily leave that one to the experts. What I know, though, and this is where you guys can kind of, like, maybe take confidence or something, is it has to start with a fantastic story. It has to be worth the wait, because a bunch of time will have gone by between this hypothetical third movie and the second movie. It has to be fresh, funny, exciting. Has to expand the lore. It has to be great, right? And so for now, if I'm going to focus on anything, and again, I'm not confirming that I am, but if I were to focus on anything, that's what I would focus on. All my time and energy would be on the script and the story, and making sure that that is as sharp as it can possibly be. And if this hypothetical movie were to get closer to release, that's when our attention would hypothetically turn towards how to make sure it makes as big a splash as possible. I said hypothetically a lot in that one, didn't I?
Yeah.
You may have, but it was hypothetically the right answer.
Yeah, that's true. And hypothetically, this is a hypothetical.
I can see the tweet
question.
right now. Ben Mattis confirms third movie launching.
Oh my
That
god.
tweet is already live.
I just said it, didn't I? I just said it. Angry Birds Facts is going to tweet, Ben Mattis confirms third movie launching.
Oh man,
Oh,
it's
darn it.
actually going to tie into the Angry Birds cinematic universe, and that will actually tie into the Nintendo cinematic universe. And then Mario's going to show up the end credit scene and be like, "Red, I'm here to talk to you about the Smash Bros. Initiative."
Let it be noted that there is a ton of sarcasm in our voices right now.
Oh,
Indeed,
really? I thought we were
indeed.
serious.
Mm-mm.
All right, we got about 10 minutes
Yeah,
left,
you're right, you're
and
right.
we have at least 3 bigger questions. So let's try to hop
Okay.
into the next one quickly, and this is perfect for Ben. So someone asked, they followed the objectives of the Canadian studios in the news, and since you are out in Montreal, they're curious about the future of gaming as per Rovio. They've done a bit of research, mostly around the sci-fi movie-based knowledge, and found the following things explained in an article: virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, cloud gaming, high fidelity graphics, and the metaverse. What do you think about these specific things and what Rovio might be exploring in the future?
I just say 20 seconds ago, Angry Birds Facts tweeted, Ben Mattis confirms third Angry Birds movie launching.
knew it.
Just gonna say. I'll deal with that one later. Okay, future of entertainment stuff. So first of all, let's make one thing clear. Like, Rovio Montreal does not have exclusivity over innovation at Rovio by any stretch of the imagination. Rovio has been exploring AR and VR and cloud streaming and instant games and all sorts of stuff long before, I arrived, long before the start of the Rovio Montreal studio. We explored all of that, as well as creator economy, UGC. We even, looked into Web3 stuff, and for a while we're kind of reading articles on crypto and all kinds of things. So, we were absolutely deeply involved in trying to understand, and continue to be deeply involved in understanding where the industry is going, right? And Rovio, again, not just Rovio Montreal, but like all of Rovio, we read about this stuff, we play with this stuff, we prototype this stuff, and we're always asking ourselves, is this it, right? Is this the next big thing for gaming? And frankly, usually the answer is, yeah, maybe, but not quite yet. Like everything that I just said, that's the answer, right? Is AR the future of gaming? Yeah, maybe, but not today, and probably not tomorrow. Maybe next year. Same thing with metaverse. Same thing with all of these sorts of things. So, like, some big technology trends, they do have immediate potential implications for our game production, right? the wave of innovation that currently probably has the most buzz, not just at Rovio, not just in the gaming industry. I would say, frankly, in tech geekdom in general, is everything to do with AI art, right? The diffusion trend, whether that be stable diffusion or Midjourney or Dolly or pick your poison. Now, this doesn't mean that we're ready to make games based off of these technologies yet, right? But we have many creators across Rovio right now looking at, in particular, diffusion technology or generative artwork to better understand the technical, artistic, and, frankly, sort of legal implications of them. The dream, right, is that we could roll this technology into a game in a fun, easy way, right? Diffusion-powered UGC inside of a game doesn't feel that far off. Like technologically speaking, I think there are projects in development. Again, speaking not just as a Rovian here, but as someone who pays attention to the industry as a whole. There are projects in development right now, I think, whereby you will see the power of stable diffusion or generative artwork being rolled into the UGC component of the game in the not too distant future. One area that I can say with confidence that is definitely taking off and kind of feels like it's here to stay, right? And therefore a significant disruptor to how the industry and how, Rovio is thinking about gaming is cross-play, cross-platform, right? The live games that Rovio specializes in are becoming increasingly common on PC and consoles. And that is fundamentally changing how we think about the games that we create and the kinds of projects that we want to make. Because we are not necessarily experts in making $79.99 premium open world AAA, whatever action adventure games, but we know live games really, really well. And as the market on PC console adopts and adapts live gaming, suddenly that opens up a ton of really interesting opportunities for Rovio to say, you know what? This we know how to do. This Angry Birds fits in really well with. So that's definitely an area I'm super excited about.
Wow. That was a great answer. Gonna have to move on to the next one, but that's very interesting. You generally have such a fascinating job. So keep that in mind.
I like it.
It is. Wow, I hope you do. Okay, so will there be major collaborations with major brands in games, Fortnite please, and merchandise?
So I'm a huge fan of collaborations, especially when they're done really well. I think it's very safe to say we aim to do a lot more in the future. And I'll call this one out. And I've seen this in practice, and I want to applaud all of you for this and ask you to keep this up and do this more, right? In particular, the Twitter community is fantastic for this, just because of the way, Twitter operates, assuming Elon Musk doesn't burn it to the ground. It's a great way to build momentum behind an idea, right? Ideas and virality on Twitter go hand in hand. So I'm not saying that 1,000 retweets is a guarantee, right? If that was the case, very clearly, Red would already be in Super Smash Brothers, because we've all seen that tweet and we've all seen how often that comes up. But it doesn't hurt either, right? It shows the creators, both companies, that there's a strong overlap in audience and desire. So, when someone says, hey, crossover of Red in blah, and it dies on the vine, it goes nowhere. When says, hey, when someone says, hey, crossover of Red and such, and it explodes in virality, everybody notices, both companies. And don't underestimate how many doors that can open in terms of just making sure that the finance people across the two different organizations are, shall we say, speaking to each other.
Interesting. I wonder if there's any conversations with Innersloth right now. I guess you can't say, but interesting.
Can neither confirm nor deny anything.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Fair enough. I'm just gonna say Sussy Baka. That's all I'm gonna say there. I think I saved the best or most anticipated question of mine for last. This is something I wrote. Thank you again, Buck. The Angryverse, something is clearly brewing Oh wait, let me say this again. Gotta be more dramatic. The angryverse. Something is clearly brewing at Rovio Entertainment to make some brand new approach to the franchise that connects all the different iterations to the characters, and possibly new ones. What is the thinking for this, and how will these multiverse of Furious Foul play out?
Wow, you have a voice. You have a voice made for radio.
Uh-huh.
So I spoke a lot about the Angryverse already. Obviously, I don't want to like fake announce anything. So sort of hoping, it kind of feels like you were hoping for some sort of like cherry on top here. Didn't quite deliver on that one. But again, like the sleuths out there have connected many dots, right? So there's a lot of sub messages floating around about, at least one game. You've already seen hints of it that's in active development, and it leans extremely heavily on the concept of the Angryverse, right? It is literally, I mean, I don't know what we're going to call it, but it's literally Angryverse the video game, right? So, like, now we, the team here at Rovio, just need to like make it really, 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 really good. And assuming we can do that, which again is no small feat, and it's something we take extremely seriously, but if anyone's going to pull it off, it's going to be Rovio, right? So like, assuming we can do that, then Angryverse the video game becomes a very real thing. And it's my dream. I'm working very hard on, amongst many other things, trying to turn that into a reality.
Wow. Just gonna throw a title up there. Rogues. Oh wait, sorry. Angryverse Rogues. There you go.
Sure, it's as good as any.
Or I don't know, Fury of the Angryverse, something like that. I'm just saying. Anyway, yeah, let's move on here.
Definitely a lot of good ideas out there for sure.
Yeah.
We have a few short questions left and a little bit of time left, so we'll call these the lightning round.
Lightning round.
So short answer questions. What is your favorite part about working for Rovio?
People, history, brand, ambition, 25% each. Smush them all together.
Nice. Okay. Which forgotten character would you be most interested in reviving? Think now, or forever hold your peace.
Tony.
Nice.
And I want to call him Tiny Tony, because I think that would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
I support that. Will there be a Bad Piggies 2?
I sure hope so. I mean, Bad Piggies, I was playing it just yesterday. It's aged incredibly well, in my opinion. There's great content that comes out of Bad Piggies. And again, like, I think it's probably pretty clear, I love UGC in all of its forms. I love fan art. I love fan stories. I love YouTube videos. I love everything about this community that gives it an opportunity to express its love, and frankly, even sometimes it's frustration and hate. I love that. I think that's such a special part about this job. So I'm a big supporter of everything that Rovio does that leans in heavily to giving tools, shall we say, into the hands, putting tools into the hands of the community to help express their, whatever, fandom in all shapes and forms. And I think Bad Piggies as a sub-brand is fantastic for that.
Oh, okay. That was great. Will you ever collaborate with Fortnite, Battle Royale, Epic Games? Just saying, skins, cosmetics.
Yeah, just have Tim call Red and they'll set it up.
Okay, awesome.
That does sound great. Before we go to the next question, just quickly say hi to Steve. I see you lurking in there. Next question. What are the chances of Stella's Flock and or Icebird appearing in future media?
51.47%.
I'll take those odds.
I mean, why not, right? Like, again, like I said, there are games in the works that are multiple games, like not just one. There are multiple games under active development right now that are frankly playgrounds for characters. I mean, they're different types of games with different types of core experiences, but what they share in common is more characters equals better. More characters, more powers, more story, more lore equals better. Whatever. Red likes the limelight, but he's not the only bird in the flock, right? So, of course, looking back at all of the other wonderful characters that we have discovered in the last 12 years and change is makes a lot of sense.
Wow. Okay. Let's see here. I guess. Okay. Okay, Sniper. You better be listening. Do you like the Angry Birds network?
Yes, and I also like Angry Birds Facts. And no, I won't get drawn into saying which one I like more.
The battle continues, I suppose.
You like them both equally.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on. So what has it been like for you being a studio head? Is it a difficult job?
Yeah, of course. I mean, well, so again, like I was the studio head amongst other fantastic challenges and opportunities all at the same time, and I started all of that and Rovio Montreal during the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and I'd be lying if I said I was prepared for how much of an impact the pandemic was going to have, how long it was going to last, and how much of an impact it was going to have in terms of trying to get all of these things up and running. I can say with 100% confidence and honesty and truthfulness that Rovio is the best job I've ever had. I love where we as a company have been. I love where we're going. I love working with all the Rovians across studios around the world, trying to get there. We have very big ambitions, very, huge aspirations. And it's a huge effort with hundreds of Rovians from around the world, and frankly, whatever, as close a relationship as we can possibly have with the community to try and achieve those goals. And to me, that's really special. It's a really, really special part of my job, and something that I value very deeply.
Wow.
I agree 100%. And I think it just goes to show how many people stayed around for this entire hour plus Q&A session, and how many more questions that we actually got sent in that we couldn't possibly fit in this hour. We have a super dedicated community, and I definitely love to see it.
Okay.
Now that we're essentially out of time, is there any final remarks from Clover or Ben?
Okay. I suppose I can have my final remarks. It's been an absolute fantastic experience being a host for you all. Thank you so much, both of you, for giving me this opportunity. It was excellent getting to know both of you more, especially Ben, because I already know Buck decently well. But Ben, your answers are fascinating. I hope we can talk again in the future. It's been generally great talking to you about this stuff, dude.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I had a blast, and looking forward to doing it again when we've got new stuff to say.
Mm-hmm.
Same. That sounds great. So again, thanks everybody. There will be a recording of this. We'll share it in the Discord server later, and you'll likely also see it on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Remember, CloverChat/CloverhoodYT. Let's subscribe.
That sounds like
Like and subscribe, man. Hit that bell.
Hey, yeah, hit that notification bell. Maybe if you send a notification bell, Hal will come back.
Maybe.
Maybe. Who
Awesome.
knows?
Awesome.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks
Okay,
everyone.
bye,
Enjoy your
everybody.
weekend.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.